Hey fellow musician, welcome to Audio Spectra, and in today's tutorial I'll be talking about how to master your music using Waves audio plugins. So let's get straight into it. First things first, you have to always get a metering plugin. So my favorite Waves metering plugin is the WLM meter. So the goal here is to go for something like -10 up to -7 LUFS. And then for the true peak, I always go for -1 because that's the industry standard for all the streaming services. And then when it comes to LUFS, I wouldn't recommend going for -14 LUFS because once the streaming services start normalizing your music, it will sound a lot quieter. So the goal is to always go above -14 LUFS, something like -10 up to -7 LUFS. So let's get straight into it then. First things first is to start with the limiter. Now, when it comes to using a limiter, I do limiting in stages. I don't use one limiter to do all the heavy lifting. So I'll do it in different stages. So as you can see, I have 3 different limiters, all doing just minor work so that I don't overload any plugin. So let me start with the L2. I'll disengage the other limiters. Check it out. So as you can see, the L2 is not doing that much, just minor can increase. And then the L316 is a multi-band limiter. What I'm doing with the L316 is just reducing a few of the loud, whenever the frequencies get louder, the L316 will reduce them. Check it out. So as you can see, it's working like a dynamic equalizer. It's decreasing certain frequencies and increasing some parts of the frequencies whenever they get too low. So that's what I love about the L316. As you can see, it's doing around -2 dB of gain reduction. And then we move on to the clipper. For the clipper, I'm using the IM pusher. The mushroom pusher, as you can see, I switched it to clip instead of limiter because the clipper can really push the song to around -7 LUFS without destroying the audio as compared to using a limiter. So check it out. So as you can see on the metering, the IM pusher is the one that's really pushing the song. So the reason I always start with the limiter is because I want to master into the limiter. Because once you start processing your audio and then you add the limiter last, you might be forced to go back and change certain settings to make sure that they work well with the limiter. So that's like working backwards. That's why I choose to always master into the limiter. So we're done with the volume, and then once I've got the volume right, that's when I'll start mastering the song. So the first thing that I start with is the bass compression. So this is step number 3. Step number 3 is bass compression. In this case, I didn't need to do any compression because the song was already well compressed in the mixing stages. Let me engage this plugin so that you can see what I'm talking about. So as you can see, it's doing no gain reduction. So the purpose of this plugin in this mastering chain is just character, to add that analog feel and warmth to the mix and make it sound much more bigger. That's the purpose of using the Puke channel, because it has analog characteristics. So that's why I'm using the plugin, even though it's not doing any compression. And then for step number 4, I always do some mid-side processing to control certain instruments or certain sounds, because in this song I had a problem with the higher frequencies. So as you can see, I removed the higher frequencies in the mid range. The difference is not that obvious, but if you listen carefully, you'll be able to pick it up. So as you can hear, the higher frequencies are a bit reduced. They're just reduced by like 2 dBs and then 1 dB here. And then same thing with the sides. I also reduced the higher frequencies and then increased the lower frequencies to add more bass and more punch to the song. And then that's it for mid-side processing. As you can see, the EQ is in mid-side mode. And then step number 5 is dynamic processing. So this is a dynamic EQ. I'm using the F6 for this purpose. And then let's check it out. So the goal of this dynamic EQ is just to balance the frequencies and make sure that I remove all the unwanted frequencies. So let me mute this, for instance, so that you can be able to hear what I'm talking about. So I'm going to solo it. Check it out. So the song has like this piercing sound that I'm reducing with the dynamic EQ. So I'm going to exaggerate this frequency so that you can be able to tell what I'm removing. Check it out. So as you can hear, it sounds like a whistling sound. So that can be really annoying. That's why I'm reducing that frequency. But I'm not using a static EQ because it doesn't occur like throughout the entire song. It only happens in the chorus. So whenever it gets too loud, the dynamic EQ will reduce it. And then let's remove the solo. Same with this frequency around 800 Hertz. So check it out. I'll solo this. So as you can hear, that's some annoying boxy frequency. So I'm also reducing that using a dynamic EQ. And then finally, around 187 Hertz, I also created a dynamic EQ cut. Check it out. So that frequency is really annoying and like it's causing a lot of mud in the lower frequencies. So that's why I'm reducing it every time it gets too loud. So that's the dynamic EQ. And then let's check it out. And then the next step is stereo widening. Now, the reason I'm doing stereo widening on this track is because it sounds too narrow. And that's why I'm choosing a multi-band stereo widener. I love the environment for this purpose. So let me pull out something that's not a Waves plugin. Please forgive me for doing this, but I don't know any other plugin that can show what I'm doing like visually. So Span is the only plugin that I know that can separate the mid channel from the sides like visually. So I'm going to disengage vitamin. Okay, it's already disengaged. I want you to check out the frequency response. So basically the orange part is the sides and then the green part is the mono channel, which is the mid. So check it out. So as you can see, I'm increasing the sides so that the track can sound much more open. And once it's open, you can be able to hear each and every sound in the mix much more clearer. And then for the higher frequencies, I made them a bit mono. And then the mid-range was the one that I made a bit wider. And then that's it for the vitamin. Next up is tonal EQ. So tonal EQ is just adding some frequencies that are missing in the mix, just to help the song punch more and sound a bit brighter. And I also use the spreader to open up the mix and make it much more wider. So check it out. So as you can see, now the song sounds much more brighter, punchy, and it's more open. But be careful with the spreader because you don't want to introduce any phase issues. And then finally, I have a tape emulator. So tape emulation plugin is just to shave off all the loud peaks and create more headroom so that when I push the song with the limiter, I'm able to get more volume actually. This also adds some warmth to the sound and it opens up the mix, increasing the width again. So as you can see, I'm doing things in stages. I'm not just widening everything with one plugin. I've already used like 3 plugins to widen the stereo image. So if I disengage all these plugins, check it out. So even if you are not looking at the visual representation, like if you listen to the song, you'll be able to tell that it sounds a bit narrow. So once I engage these 3 plugins, you'll see, you'll be able to hear the song open up. Check it out. So as you can see now, the entire mix is sounding like a song now. Everything is well glued together. It's much more open and you can be able to tell which sound is placed where in the mix. And you can be able to hear all the contrast and the dynamics and everything is sounding proper. So let's check out the before and after with and without all the processing. So when I click this soil button, you'll be able to hear the song without all the processing, but it will go through the limiter so that I can give you a fair comparison of the before and after. So there will be no volume change. I also increased some volume here to level match the before and after so that you are not fooled by any level gain. And then you'll be able to hear the difference between the before and after. So check it out. We'll start without all the processing and then I'll engage the processing. So that's some real professional mastering, only using Waves plugins. I really hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. If you have any questions, I know this can be a bit confusing, but make sure that you watch the video like a couple of times so that you can be able to pick up on certain things that you might have missed. Because once you start watching the video again and again, you'll be able to pick up those things that you have missed, and you'll be able to get those light bulbs like each and every time you watch the video. Because I shared a lot of information, like I'm trying to compress all the information so that this video doesn't become like 30 minutes. That's it for today. Take good care of yourself, and please leave a comment below if you have any questions. You know I'm always here to help. And that's it. Cheers.